So one of the biggest, most frequent objections our Medspa partners are handling is the I need to talk to my spouse objection, which is essentially a decision delay. It's a stalling objection, okay? And I don't want to just hear it from me. I'm going to show you a range of different approaches. I want you to feel the energy of these experts who come into this space with their different kind of like backgrounds and mindsets. I'm going to start with Terry Ross. I want you to hear what she has to say about this, and then I'll explain why this is extremely effective, because this has single-handedly helped our Medspa partners add 20, 50, 60,000 in new revenue through upselling alone on ad spends of $1,000 to $3,000. So we're talking really big asymmetric returns, okay? Let's dive in.
They're like, well, I need to go home and talk to my husband, who's familiar with TouchMD. So it's a software, it's really a phenomenal consultation tool where you can basically have the patient log in at home, right? And see all their before and afters, circle, like there's a treatment plan that you can upload, even the ones that I was passing around in there. But like, again, they can go home and share that stuff with their spouse. It's just all about questioning. Well, does your husband know that you're here? How does he feel about how you feel? And what do you think that he would say? If you go home and talk to him, what do you want to get out of that conversation? So if he says yes, what would that mean for you? And if he said no, how do you think that's going to make you feel? Like everybody just like typically lets somebody walk out the door. I need to go talk to my husband. Okay, great, thanks. I need to see what my husband says. And then they're never going to call you back.
So that is essentially the crux. You let them out that door, they're very unlikely to come back again. Why? It's not because they didn't want it. It's just because by the time they get home, the buying temperature sort of cools down. Their mind sort of starts racing. They come back with their limiting beliefs, with their previous objections. You need to ride the momentum, the wave. And when you have them in the clinic is the best time to basically sell and persuade and convince. And so with that being said, what you have to be cognizant about here is that essentially the game is one of persistence in their service. So you're asking them what their spouse would think, what your spouse would say. This is essentially the approach. Does he know you're here? I assume they want it to look and feel your best. Yeah, but they're not going to understand. They're going to think it's too expensive. Okay, so now we have the real objection, which is not that I need to speak to someone. It's that they might think it's too expensive. By the way, this is most likely a foil, which is the person not being able to speak their mind, being ashamed or uncomfortable admitting that they think it's too expensive. And so when you probe on that, so it's not so much a talk to spouse thing, but it's more a money thing, then he or she is going to object to how much it's going to cost. What specifically would you like to talk to them about? Honestly, sometimes it's enough to just ask that follow-up question, and oftentimes they'll just say, yeah, let's just go ahead and do it. So treat it like a smokescreen. Let's look at some places where this might actually not make as much sense. There's a different way to handle it from another perspective.
Word for me as a last ditch effort. I think if you use this right off the bat, it comes across as combative, and I actually think will put a blockade between you and the prospect. I will say, hey, totally get it. We're not in the business of divorce here. Why don't we go ahead and do this? I've done this for plenty of other clients before. You can put me on mute. You can turn the camera off. You can go and have a conversation with your spouse. If it's a yes, then great, I'll walk you through next steps. If it's a no, then I'll do my best to give you some value on the way out. Does that sound fair? If they say no, then I will.
So we actually had a Medspa operations manager pull this off very recently. She's consistently doing this, and the way she does it is, that's okay, completely understand. Why don't I just walk out for a second and I give you the space and privacy to give him a call now? And oftentimes they just say yes. Sometimes they literally want to speak to their spouse. They want to ask for permission, for approval. And other times they're just like actually being called out. They basically kind of like drop the act and they're like, you know what? Yeah, that's fine. Let's just go with it. Especially the A-type personalities, the ones that like to have agency and the ones that never really wanted to relinquish that decision process in the first place.
I'll say this, hey, no worries, totally get if your spouse isn't around or if you don't want to have the conversation right now. Now, when you do go to have that conversation,
so this is the case in which they might actually refuse. They might say, no, I cannot do it now. They're not available. They're not ready. So you have to go to the next best thing, which is essentially prepare them for the conversation they're going to have with the spouse. You want to empower them to go into that conversation with your frame so that they actually essentially carry the persuasion on your behalf. They're hooked, they're convinced, and then now it's a question of basically pulling and reeling the spouse into this new mindset and new perspective as well.
What is the main concern that you guys are going to discuss? From there, they're going to tell us what the main concern is, and now we're right back into the pitch.
Someone says,
And so there you have what is the main concern that you think they're going to want to discuss. And now it can really go two ways. One is they can tell you what the concern is and you can address it with them, counter and handle the real objection, or they'll still want to go ahead and talk to their spouse, but that is your best chance that they're actually going to get locked in. Not my favorite one. Ideally, you still want some sort of commitment from them before they go home. Ideally, you handle that objection in a way where if it really is about money, if it really is about cash flow, you give them some sort of downsell, some sort of continuity so that you keep them in. But if you really have to, if you really must, then obviously you let them go. You book a follow-up and you press for a quick, swift timeline. Nobody needs more than 24 hours to have that conversation, right? You can lock in their space. You can lock in the special offer that you just pitched to them, a OTO, one time only limited. And obviously it has to be a conditional, which is we're extremely busy. This special has very limited availability. I'm going to save your spot until the rest of the day if they consent that that is sufficient time for them to make that decision. Okay. Here's another way of looking at it.
Spouse. You say, totally understand. I think it's really sensible that you'd want to talk to your spouse, and super fair. Just so I understand, out of curiosity, what parts do you think they wouldn't like? We've now moved from I have to talk to my partner to now we're back in the sale talking about the specific things. And once we get the prospect to name those things, then we can attack those. I need to talk to my spouse.
So it's exactly the same thing as the foil. What do you think they're going to say? So there's a bunch of ways you can handle that. One is to basically get to the consensus that they're already there and they know that you're here. They know that you're here. They want you to look your best. So why would they oppose to you basically doing what's ultimately best for you, right? And then here's another one. This one's a heavy hitter too.
Tired of losing deals when the prospect says,
you know what, this sounds good. I just need to talk with my spouse.
and you throw out some rebuttal, some guru has taught you, or some sales manager, and you lose 9 out of 10 of those. I want you to stop the madness. Come over here. Let me show you what to do. You got to agree first. Yeah, John, that's not a problem. How does your spouse feel about you? And then repeat the end result.
Which is why it's so important to do a thorough discovery. You need to know exactly what it is that they're struggling with, what gives them grief. If they want to achieve a dream body, if they want to fix their face, wrinkles, hyperpigmentation, whatever it may be, it's like, how does your spouse feel about you being here, wanting to do this? Which is the next level to, does she know you're here, right? Do they know you're here? Yes, great, awesome. How do they feel about you wanting to achieve the result that you just said you wanted to? I actually prefer that way too. I assume they want you to look and feel your best, because you never should assume. People don't trust what comes out of your mouth, but they trust everything that they themselves say. So the right inquiry here is for you to ask the questions and then for them to respond with the ammunition.
So most of them are going to say,
I think that she would.
after they say that, you want to ask a consequence question. Let's say you're talking to a real estate agent who needs more listings. Well, what happens if you go to her and she doesn't want you to get the funds?
All right, so even if this is a real estate agent example, guys, this is applicable across the entire spectrum. It's very much applicable in the Medspa space as well, which is a consequence-based question, which is cool. Well, this could play out two ways. What if they say no? And then you have to see what they're going to respond to that.
To get these higher quality leads. Like, how would you be able to get 8 listings a month at that?
It's essentially aggravating the pain of inaction. All right, so what if your spouse says no? And then you end up not being able to get to your dream body to fit in your dress before this upcoming event, wedding, or by the end of the year. And now you're basically prolonging the last 2, 3, 5 years that you've been struggling with this.
That point.
Well, no, I know that, she would want me to and blah, blah.
See, I'm repeating back the end result. Most of the time, they'll say, oh, no, I think she would want me to, or whatever, okay? And then they're usually ready to go. So next.
And there you have it. As soon as they give you that, that's essentially a tie down. It's like, oh, no, they'll be good with it. Great, amazing. Well, how do you want to go forward with this? And then you basically lock them in.
Time you get the spouse objection, use that. Now, there's some very...
Alrighty, so that's essentially the way you hit that from all angles. Here's one final one.
just want to run this by my spouse first. If you've dealt with that, I want to show you exactly how to deal with that in the future so that you don't have to work with you. So, okay, cool. So you're okay with the payments. They say yes. Okay. You believe this can work for you. Number two, they say yes. You can show up and do the work. They're like, yes.
So that's a triple tie down. It's like money aside, you think this works for you? Yes. You're convinced that this is the right solution for you. You want this. Hell yeah, let's go. And you are basically qualifying the criteria. You're going to come and do the work, the dieting, the exercise, whatever it takes, right? Because you educated them on the service, on their part that they have to play. Now they've given you a triple yes. Let's see what happens next.
Cool. So they just told you everything they need to do to actually get results. So if that were the case, I'd be like, well, you just told me everything you need in order to make this work. So it sounds like we have everything we need to get started other than your spouse's approval or permission. So you want to isolate the objection. Other than needing to talk to your spouse, is there any other reason you wouldn't do this?
And at this point, it's either the case that it's literally just the approval and permission, and then you walk out the door, the room, and you let them actually do it, or they might actually push back on one of those three questions that you asked. Oftentimes that happens. Oftentimes that is the line of inquiry that surfaces the real objection, which is potentially the money, and then you just sort out payment plans, in-house or credit financing, or appointment-wise, one appointment at a time as a last resort. Or it's maybe that they're not convinced that it works and they need more reassurance and reinforcing of the case studies and the results of people just like them who achieve the same outcome. And then basically you handle that piece.
They say, no, cool with the payments. You believe this will work for you, etc. They're like, well, actually, it's the money. Let's talk about that. Cool. So now it's not about the spouse. It's about the money. But a lot of times, remember this, guys, it's never about the money. Even if they say it's about the money, it's about they don't believe this is going to work for you.
It's either that they believe it's not going to work for them, or it's about the value. They don't see the value. So there's quite a few avenues that you can go from there. But guys, for the start, the first thing that you want to do is start digging. You get to the objection, you pick your shovel and you start digging for gold. You start digging for the next layer. We'll handle that layer when we get to it, okay? And so just to pull all this together as a framework, ultimately, this is a decision maker, husband, wife sort of handle, and you first basically want to catch them in their lie, so to speak. It's not a lie, it's just a foil, it's just a coping mechanism. So the first thing, what would happen if they said no? You have to do that, because ultimately they'll say, well, I'm gonna go ahead with it anyway. Perfect, well, we're here, let's go. What would happen if they don't give you permission? Okay, that's ultimately the first step to start the inquiry. Then you address the foil, which is they're using the smokescreen, they're using the other person to voice their own concerns. Well, what do you think would be their main concern? What do you think would make them say no? What do you think would make them say an absolute yes? What would it take for us to move forward? And now you're having the conversation with a spouse, but it's really you're having it with them in a way where their ego is not threatened, their guard is down, and you just like chip away at it. Handle all of the time, delay, objections, money, everything. The goal is to get out and handle the real objection. Cool. Once you're done with that, you can do the post agreements. So, well, what do you think would be a good indication that they would be okay with it? So, examples of when they've been aligned with your decision-making process in the past, right? Like stuff that you're already doing. Do they know that you're here? Great. Do they know that you've bought stuff like this in the past? Do they know that you've tried other solutions to get rid of your wrinkles, to get rid of your excess fat? Great. Do they know the extent to which this is making you suffer, the impact that it has in your life? That you're in pain with the situation? Great. All right. So if they don't approve of your current situation, like are they unhappy that you're unhappy type thing, why would they not approve that you solving what they already don't approve of? Okay. And then here's another one. Showing them happiness is their responsibility, which is kind of like a Hail Mary. It's one of those, you take your consultant hat on and you put your coach hat on, and it's like, hey, can I give you a perspective here? Ask for permission, especially if it's something that's potentially uncomfortable. Hey, it sounds like you're looking to ask for permission when you should be asking for support. And hey, oftentimes it's better to ask for forgiveness rather than permission, because at the end of the day, if we play this out, let's say you don't get rid of this. Who are you going to blame? Is it far in this partnership that you don't get the outcome you desire because you rely on this person? So this is super important, because this is like the impact of this indecision in the future, which makes them realize that actually they owe it to the spouse as well to put themselves first, okay? Because all that's going to do is, if you continue to not get this person's permission 5 years down the line, where are you going to be? Who are you going to blame? Who are you going to resent? Fundamentally, if they're the ones in charge, they're the ones that get the blame, which means that you're not in any way in control of your own life. And I don't think that's fair for you. I don't think that's fair for them. I don't think it's fair for the relationship. Or better yet, you can ask, how does that make you feel? Does this sound like that would be a fair outcome? Do you think that that's fair on you? Do you think it's fair on them? Do you think it's fair in the relationship? And that's how you do it. So obviously this is very kind of like advanced. You don't need to start there. You can just start with the first layers. You can just start with inquiry. Honestly, oftentimes you don't even need to go to that extent. You just have to start the service level question. You just have to like do one little follow-up, and then the rest of it will kind of fall in place. So have fun with it. It's exciting to realize that actually no doesn't necessarily mean no. It just means I'm not ready to pull the trigger. I need more questions. I need to continue having this conversation. Hope this is useful. Obviously, you want any support training one-to-one on this, medspa.com. We're here for you. And if not, we'll see you in the next video.